at some point.
Can I ask a question? One of the toughest questions that's come up, from either the public hearing, the board meeting, is the topic of this building. Some of the committee have stated that the board did not follow through on a commitment we made 4 or so years ago that we were going to move the central office out of New York Avenue. I actually went back to the housing report, and it reads like this: if it is financially advantageous to the district, the Board of Education should relocate central office to the existing classroom space within the district, and if possible, retain the rights to the field at the Jane Barton Building at New York Avenue for the district and community use. That being said, I don't recall that we gave ourselves a timeline. Dr. Castani, can you kind of talk to where we are with, moving on this building, and who in the political space or in the realtor space we've engaged?
Sure. Well, as you know, back in, I think it was November or December, I think it was November, we brought on Newmark Grubb, which is a very large industrial commercial realtor. Does lots of work with municipalities, specifically in Suffolk. I mean, they're an international company, but they've worked quite a bit with the town of Brookhaven, the town of Islip, the town of Riverhead, and now they're going to be working with the town of Smithtown. We did propose to, the board had said, let's see what we can look at in here. We met with a few realtors. We went with them. Newmark Grubb has met with the town officials in the planning department to find out from them what they felt would be an appropriate use for this. They had a 3-hour meeting, I think it was last week or the week prior.
Yeah, I think last week they met with councilmen, and then the councilman's going to meet up with the planning department, and then they're going to reschedule for them all to meet, and the planning department's going to determine what they think is the best use for this site.
So, and in the course of that time, we've looked at and about 3.5, 4 acres approximately is zoned with commercial. That's the frontage closest to New York Avenue. The remainder is considered residential. There is also, the town is very interested in the other parcels of land that we had, as we've discussed, to keep those as to never be developed, so as to keep the water table and sewage issue at bay. So for every time you try to change the usage, you need to keep other land that will never be developed, so it won't affect that. So they've engaged in all those preliminary discussions. Once they meet again with the town planning board, then the realtor will be able to start soliciting proposals for use. There are a few companies, there are a few developers, I should say, that are interested in this property, particularly because of its proximity to downtown and the train station.
And talk about, you've sat in some meetings with the Suffolk County Executive who sees this as a cornerstone as part of Smithtown downtown revitalization.
Yes, no, he absolutely does, and I know that I met with Supervisor Vecchio, he met with Supervisor Vecchio, they discussed it. I know that it seems at the moment that the town, which is the main place that we have to get approval from, seems to be in support of changing the use of this particular land.
Fair enough. I would say that I don't think any of us are married to say it. That being said, last question related to this topic, which is, in terms of moving central office out of here, it's not just packing up a couple of files and the like. The community should know that this building houses, it is the central point for technology for district-wide. We have a print shop here. We have a central command security center. And I would imagine any place we were to put this proposed building that's being discussed now, perhaps Wisconsin Elementary, using either one of our current elementary buildings or either Wisconsin Elementary as a space for central office, I would imagine would require some retrofit because elementary buildings are not conducive and set up to house the day-to-day operations of a central office.
No, I would agree. We operate in offices, so we need smaller places than larger classrooms. I mean, it would be more efficient. I know there were some square footage questions and whatnot. I'm gonna get into that later because I think, and we can really talk in depth about that, and we'll see what buildings we can technically fit into. in terms of parking as well. But I do think that one of the things that everyone needs to understand is that New York Avenue is a 12-month operation. It's the offices, so wherever we go, wherever New York Avenue goes, there's going to have to be need for electrical upgrades. We have the highest use of computers, the telephones, the air conditioning, so that's going to have to take place. Also, like I said, the classrooms, some of the classrooms have to be partitioned off into smaller office areas. Concerns have been raised about, well, can we all fit in one place? So when I get to the square footage, we'll talk about that we fit better in other places. But also, in my research, yes, that was a charge from the previous committee, but the committee also, I think the board also said, well, let's see if we can rent this property. And a realtor was engaged.
Thank you, that was my
A
question.
realtor was engaged, and we made attempts to rent that property so that there would be income, because there truly is no interest in someone renting this building or occupying it. And since this is a building that houses offices, it doesn't house instruction. Any capital improvements wouldn't be reimbursed from state aid. When you do capital improvements in a building, we'll talk later, I know there were questions regarding the bonds and whatnot. Andrew, for every dollar we spend, we get reimbursed from the state.
Approximately 58% is our building aid ratio.
So for every dollar we spend, we get back 58 cents.
On an instructional building, if we were to spend it on a non-instructional building, it is not eatable.
We get nothing.
One of my questions to the superintendent was, who's the liaison person now that we have a new realtor since December the 8th? Who's going to be the contact person in central office?
My
Andrew?
friend Mr. Rand, Mr. Dillon.
Because I think we definitely need emphasis placed on the sale or the rental of this building and this concept.
We did, when we spoke with Jack
I
last week.
think we ought to spend our time and energies worrying about getting rid of here, rental or lease, and doing something with New York Avenue, and put our energies there in the next year or two.
Well, we have, Andrew has spoken with Jack O'Connor, our realtor, and he will be providing Andrew with periodic updates. That's, I sent everyone that email last week regarding the meeting, so that way, as soon as we have information on there, but he's gonna be in contact with Andrew on a
One
regular
thing too,
basis.
when we were selling like Landing Elementary School, some board members, I was one of them, that met with Pat Vecchio. I don't want them across the street to be telling us, I know their rules and regulations, but I don't think we tell Mr. O'Connor, we don't want to be excluded from those decisions. I read his memo to us about meeting with one of the council people. Well, I think he better meet with the board too.
Sure, we can have him in for regular meetings, sure.
I
Just-
think to piggyback on that, I think part of the issue when we engaged the realtor, I guess it was under Dr. Nunziata's leadership, is the town placed such restrictions on this building use that people were not interested. Correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps you put the number of flushes that were allowed for this, so that as a residential building or rent, I think we envisioned a revitalization of downtown similar to Patchogue and Huntington. That was kind of our vision for what this space could be used for. But there were restrictions on how this property could be used toward that end. And so whoever does purchase or rent has that part to overcome.
Well, I think you're getting at two issues, one of which is that anybody who buys this property is gonna get into contract with us, subject to
Subject to.
Mhm.
getting the permits that they want, the approvals they want. Now, we're a little bit lucky, because we have some fallow parcels, which we can say to the town, look, give our contract vendee, give our purchaser the permits that he or she wants to do the intended use that they're looking for here, and we promise, we will never, ever, ever, ever develop parcel A and parcel B, and one of them is rather large.
They're both about 10 acres.
Well, about 10 acres, okay. So that would be a place in town where we would not be burdening the groundwater with the need for filtration. And that might allow us more capacity here. So that's one of the things.
Then we lost fields.
But, well, then that's the third consideration, which is if we're gonna sell this parcel, how much of it we're gonna sell. I had a concern at one point that I was worried about the Arthur House, but it turns out that is not a landmark building.
No.
Okay, which is great news for us, because that's frontage to Main Street, and that's part of this parcel. So there are many, many considerations. The first thing would be great, it would be, well, two things. It would be great to hear from the town what kind of usage they would entertain, given that we do have these parcels that we can encumber with covenants and restrictions, never ever gonna be built upon. And the second thing would be to attract a buyer. You know, and yet another consideration was this notion that when Steve Ballone, our county supervisor, showed up on site, I started to think that we might finally get the sewer district, that some of us feel would go a long way to helping not only this parcel in this district, but the entire Main Street. So there's lots and lots of things where you're absolutely right, and I think people who are under the impression that we're gonna put a sign out front, like you would on your house, and in 90 days we're gonna close, it's not gonna happen. I really wish, but commercial real estate doesn't unfortunately work that way.
Yeah, on that, best case scenario, do we have an idea of when, if the realtor found somebody, or whatever the process is, what's the best case scenario when we can actually sell this? Range, I mean, a range, is it a year, is it 2 years?
I don't think anyone knows that answer. Our realtor, when we spoke with him, they said, don't envision anything prior to a range of 5 to 7 years. Because that's how long they say it would take it
Okay.
to find out from the town what they'll accept. You go out